Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Big Blue Offensive Podcast with Mike Trainer, Jay Jules, and John Depot. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the BBO NYG Podcast. I am Mike. That is Jules. John is still working hard. He's on his hiatus. He's still working hard. He's working till like midnights. I think he's got the graveyard shift, but he'll be back right around training camp when that starts popping. But I guess we got some news, man, about my favorite running back that I named my dog after, Barkley. Jules, man, what's going on with him, man?
So apparently he was at like a youth football camp yesterday, right? Which was Sunday for those listening. And, obviously he gets flocked by the media because they have nothing else to report during this part of the season. So the question came up, what's the holdup? What's going out there? One of the more positive things that he had said was that all this stuff that we're hearing that's leaked, that he turned down $12 million, he turned down 13 with incentives and all this kind of shit, and everything else seems to not be true. That's what Barkley came out saying initially, right out the gate, basically, that, look, I'm trying to make negotiations. I realize that this is a business. And of course, I'm paraphrasing this. Don't quote me word for word. But, and that, look, the NFL is what the NFL is. And that the Giants, and this is some of the words that he used, basically says that don't worry, this is a family. And that's what he's kind of expecting, is to be treated as if it's family, and to be treated for what he's worth and what he deserves for what he's done up until this point. And we'll get into that in a moment, right? But again, I'm just kind of going through and highlighting some of the things that he said. And then he actually got on to say at some point, whether or not it was in the beginning or towards the end, I think it was more so in the beginning of the interview, he basically said that he would be willing to hold out and has no problem doing that. And man,
I can't blame him.
He's spiraling big time.
To be honest, I can't blame him. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually kind of, you know why? You know why? Because I'm sick of the running back market and these guys not getting paid. I think like Dalvin Cook just got cut the other day. It's like either you start paying these guys or it's going to be a problem, because then the future is going to be all kids that just want to play wide receiver, and it's going to end up being a wide receiver league. And then you're going to have like running backs by committee not making any kind of big money. You know what I mean? That's not fair to the players that actually, work hard and to be an important piece in football as a running back. I think you need it. I think NFL is fucking up. I think they really are.
Like, since you brought that part of it up, right? I think one thing that they can do, right? And they kind of did something like this a few years back. And it could be completely different, but at least they did something where they changed the structure of it. I think it was like Sam Bradford was like one of the last quarterbacks that had this sort of like contract where they used to have an outrageous style of a contract for quarterbacks that was selected in the first like 10 picks or the first round or however it was structured. Yeah, and they modified it, right? Basically, they realized that it was just they were making more money than certain guys that were veterans in the league that had playoff wins under their belt. These kids are coming in out of college, and all of a sudden they're making more money, right? So they restructured something. I don't remember exactly what it was. I can look it up, but it was just literally right now when you were talking here that this kind of popped into my head. Because one thing they can do, right, is if you come in the league as a running back, maybe make it a 3-year rookie contract, right? So now you got these guys that come in at 21, 22, whatever the case may be, and they're only going to go for 3 years. So now when they're 24, 23 years old, somewhere in that range, now they're up for that big contract. The NFL will be more likely to pay a 24-year-old that's proven a couple of seasons at running back and give him a nice 5-year contract where he's making, 16, 17, 18 million a year. Because the risk of him being hurt or him wearing down is a lot less. You know what I mean? When these guys then all of a sudden 25 like Josh Jacobs, 26 like Saquon Barkley, right? They want these big contracts. It's like, dude, think about it. Realistically, I'm not going to give you more than 3-4 years. I'm not. You know what I mean? And even giving you a commitment of even 3 years on Barkley's end, where you're going to try to be making in the upwards of 16, 17 million for a guy who's only really had 2.5 really good seasons, right? Let's be fair here.
I'll be fair, yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're going to pay him for an extent more than that. Where he's still in the top 10 in his position. He's a top 10 running back paid today, even taking the franchise tag. I mean, he's in what the market is, and the only way that I can see this being adjusted is if they do something with that rookie contract where they don't have to play 5 years in, and they may be able to get that deal at age 24 or 25 rather than waiting at 26, 27 to get paid. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that's just one sort of idea that can be like thrown out there.
I like that idea.
Right? I mean, it's not a terrible idea. I mean, look, you come in the league as a, like they do the same shit when a tight end comes into the league, right? He doesn't get wide receiver money. He gets tight end money.
Tight end money.
Right? You don't hear anybody complaining about that type of shit, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you don't see these guys hold it out. I haven't seen a tight end hold out yet, but these running backs are coming.
All right, but you be saying like, all right, Travis Kelce, like on its own planet, right? Darren Waller, he's still up there. As an elite tight end. Mark Andrews, right? They're going to get paid, and then the guys in the lower tier. George Kittle, right? But after that, then it kind of like drops off. They're in the second tier. A lot of these other guys. But you could say the same thing about running backs. Barkley's obviously in the top tier. I think, does he deserve McCaffrey money? No, because McCaffrey does everything. He catches, he runs, he's legit part, the majority part of San Fran's offense. So I would get it like not exactly his contract, but I would kind of get it like close where he feels he's better than everybody else in the running back market besides McCaffrey. You let him be in the top tier, get him paid as such. And then you guys, you go in the second tier. I don't want to see him, be like, down. He's a team captain, man. He should be part of the long-term plans. All running backs are not going to play for 10 years. Everybody knows that. So I could get on board with a 3-year rookie contract and paying him up until like maybe year 6. And then after that, whatever happens. But I don't know. I think he deserves his money, to be honest with you.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna throw out this name first, and then I got some other names I want to throw out to draw some parallels to this. Right. Number one name I want to throw out, only because this is lingering, is Le'Veon Bell. Look at Le'Veon Bell. Honestly, up until this point in his career, and I understand this contract dispute kind of was like maybe Bell had an extra year of playing, but they were around the same age. He had this contract holdout, goes to the Jets. I get it. Pittsburgh was a better team than the Jets were at the time, but his career fell off the map. The map.
Because he took that year off.
Guy. I can't name a guy that held out a whole year in his prime, and then came back as a running back and was as effective.
Yeah,
none comes to mind at all. Guys may have gotten hurt, missed a year, came back from injury. Different story. You got Adrian Peterson, who was suspended a year because he took a switch and hit his kid with it and shit like that. And he came back and was still, but like he came back and got hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like came back and was effective.
He was a different breed, though.
Was that?
Adrian Peterson was a different breed. He came back from ACL and just went for like 200,000 yards. It was crazy.
Right.
But I'm hoping Barkley is that guy
for a half a year. You know what I'm saying? Remember that? And he came back and was effective and was still kind of a beast after that. So, I mean, you have guys that have done stuff like that, but none of them have ever said and held out on a contract dispute, came back and was the same, right? You're first of all, you're setting a bad tone. You just are. Like, it just leaves a bad taste in owner's mouth, the NFL in general, your teammates. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, where it's like, dude, you could work something out. Come on, stop. There's got to be something you can work out. So, maybe you want 15 million and you're going to get 12. Okay, cool. But guess what? As face of the fucking New York Giants, right? Because we still carry that name. You're going to get endorsements up the wazoo. He's doing Dunkin' Donuts commercials and fucking Campbell's Chunky Soup and all this other kind of shit and Gatorade. Bro, you're telling me you might make more than $12 million doing that in a single season. And why? Because you're the face of the New York Giants, right? So it's like, dude, you got to keep that shit in mind too, right? It's not like you're getting paid this $10, $12 million. You're going to make at least another 5 to 10 over that in just endorsements alone. And you play incentives.
I don't think Mara.
Games. Well, that's right.
I don't think Mara would let him sit out. Plus, why would he want to leave his teammates out to dry? You know what I'm saying? I don't think it gets to that point. I think it's just like what you have to say. If the contract isn't getting done right away, you have to say it. You got to put pressure on the other side. You can't just not, be quiet and not say anything. I think what he did was probably the right thing to come out and say that. And maybe it puts his, pressure on his own agent too, to try to get something done.
It could just be a little ploy, and he's sick of hearing shit in the
That's what they
media.
do.
He's sick of hearing these mixed, remarks going out, right? And he just wanted to kind of set the record. And again, too, I have a feeling, and this is my gut feeling, is that Jacobs and Barkley are playing off of each other right now, because Jacobs didn't sign his tag either right now, and Jacobs is coming off being. Here's the difference, right? Jacobs is coming off leading the league in rushing last year.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Barkley hasn't done shit. You know what I mean?
What the fuck?
Dude, there's a running back that I want to mention. I kept saying I was going to mention all these running backs later on. But you remember Larry Johnson? He was a Penn State product, came out. Larry Johnson was untouchable for 2 seasons. And if you had him in your fantasy league and you were doing fantasy back then, you fucking won with Larry Johnson. Plain and simple in those years, right? Like, he was that much of a beast. You look at other running backs like LaDainian Tomlinson. He did it for many years. He was able to produce at that level. Marshall Faulk, right? Edgerrin James. All these guys did it. Barkley hasn't. He hasn't. He has to accept the fact, whether it be just, fluke injuries or whatever the case may be, bad offenses, whatever. He had some down seasons. He's got to accept that. Where CMC had 1 down season. You know what I'm trying to say? Alvin Kamara had 1 down season, which just happened to be this past season. Yeah. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the names he wants to put himself. Nick Chubb's been Mr. Reliable. He doesn't catch a lot of passes, but he's been Mr. Reliable. And those are the running backs that are making more money than Saquon Barkley currently. So it's like, you're asking to be put into that class with these guys. You haven't done what they've done. Plain and simple. You just haven't, All
right, if you put Barkley behind Cleveland's offensive line for the past few years, and you put Nick Chubb on the Giants the past few years, don't you think maybe like their careers would have been reversed a little bit?
I mean, true, but like, you know what? It's like anything, right? If you take a real estate agent, let's just say, right? And the real estate agent is working $1 million listings, right? Versus a guy who's a real estate agent that has maybe $500,000 listings. Mm-hmm. The guy that has $1 million listings, if he sells 5 houses versus the other guy who sells 5 houses, he's going to make a hell of a lot more on his commission, right? So you can't, it's all relevant to what it is what I'm basically trying to say. And Barkley's on the team that he is. He had the fluke injuries and the injury he had. And that's life, bro. There's nothing you can do. Your performance at that level right now.
It's all connected. The whole team concept, you're only gonna be as great as your team. I was having arguments with with Daniel Jones, and I'm like, listen, guys, if the Giants drafted Mahomes like years ago, and just say the same year as Daniel Jones, for instance, right? It would have been the same shit. Like Mahomes, sure, maybe he would have looked good sometimes, but he stepped in shit. He waited. He sat a year. He has one of the best head coaches, like brilliant offensive mind.
They were already a playoff team. They were already a playoff team that actually was making noise.
Best offensive line, best tight end, best wide receiver 1 and Tyreek Hill, then a bunch of speedy guys. I mean, come on, man. You got to – if you step –
Didn't he also play with Jamal Charles 1 year?
Did he?
I'm trying to think.
He might have been like a backup.
Jamal Charles and Alex fucking left at the same time, but I
might have been a backup. But
I think he might have played with him 1 year, but he did have a solid running game. This is basically what I'm going with.
But you gotta have. I think you need to step in shit. You need to have everything in order to get judged properly. Because people are saying, "Oh, Jones sucks. He don't elevate nobody." You think Mahomes is gonna elevate C.J. Board? You know what I'm saying? You think you know what I mean? It's just like I have those kind of
what people forget. You know what people forget? And since we went down this rabbit hole with Daniel Jones and quarterbacks in general, quarterbacks are now the face basically of every franchise for the most part in the NFL, right? If you have a good quarterback with good charisma and can play ball, there's a really good chance the team's in the playoffs, and you might win, right? Because they're going to be the spokesperson in a way, right?
Right.
So let me tell you something. This goes back to the Brady days, because we can go on. We have a whole separate show for that shit. But they get calls. You know how in the NBA, Michael Jordan used to get rumored for getting all the calls, and then now you see all the other guys get calls. Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, now you're going to see fucking Jalen Hurts, right? Herbert, Burrow. These guys get calls. They get fucking calls, man. Roughing and all this type of shit and unnecessary hit. They get all that shit. You know what I mean? Their fucking offensive lines get away with just a little bit more wear and tear and little pull of tugs. They do it because they got to protect these guys. So once you establish that name for yourself, you're elevated. You're automatically elevated an extra level, right? So Pat Mahomes, came into the scene with everything we had just mentioned, right? Comes into the playoffs, wins a couple games, and all of a sudden they're putting him up fucking next to Brady, right? And all of a sudden, you see the following season, he's getting calls his way. They are looking the other way at certain things, certain holds. It's just how it is, man. You know what I mean? So it's hard to make that comparison and say that Pat Mahomes on the Giants versus Daniel Jones, whatever is going to be what it is. But it's just how it is, man. Like, look, think about
It's
it.
life. I get it. It's context. I'm just saying. I'm just saying it's context. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but even
throw
take
that
it
out
like one more step further, right? Because like we all like to try to say like the fix is in and the NFL is going to fix and this and that. You really think these referees who nobody fucking, they said Hockley, right? Because used to come out Mr. Guns and shit like that. And,
Yeah.
you might know like one or two other like main umpires or some shit like that.
Fucking
That's it. You don't know the fucking other guys. There's like how many fucking umpires and referees in the NFL? Like maybe 100 at least, maybe one, like somewhere in that neighborhood. You don't even know like 4 names. So
Yeah,
like
right.
you don't think that these ordinary guys that make a decent salary don't get a little starstruck? I mean, think about it, man. You run around on the field, you see fucking Pat Mahomes playing Josh Allen. You got to keep it fucking level, but at the same time, it's Josh Holmes, Mahomes versus Allen. Like, what the
We're
fuck?
human. We're human,
Yeah, they're gonna make that kind of
it.
an where it's like, Pat Mahomes is yelling at you, a 2-time Super Bowl fucking winner and MVP, and he's over there telling you, no, that's not what the call was. It should have been this shit. You're gonna fucking start thinking that way. You know what I mean? So, like, the whole point to this, and I know one of my rants and shit is just that literally it just kind of boils down to that, like, a lot of these guys get that extra little step up because of who they are and what they've done at this point, right? And then now they just kind of sort of on cruise control at certain aspects of the season in the game, right? And Jones ain't there yet.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope he gets there.
Right.
And then he starts getting the calls.
Look, if he can get this Giants team in 2023 to the playoffs again and win another playoff game, his name's gonna fucking be up there, man. For real. Like, there's no more bullshit and there's no more talking down on it. Like, if he has a season where I kind of tweeted out, it was last week, I think, or over the weekend, what would people need to see to have like Daniel Jones not be hated on so much? That was what the question was. That was on someone's tweet, and I can't remember who it was. But I basically came back and said 25 plus TDs and 4,000 passing, right? If he gets in that range, let's say he throws for 26 like he did his rookie year, and he throws for 4,000, he keeps his turnovers low, right? Maybe they go up a little bit, a little more passing, a little more vulnerability, get it. But he definitely gets those numbers in that range, and then rushes for like another 4 or 5. Well, he's over 30, right? Since that's the mark now, right? You got to be over 30 touchdowns total. And then he's got 4,000 yards passing. If he gets the team to the playoffs and wins one more playoff game, again, these are not major expectations here. I'm not saying he's going to the Super Bowl passing for 5,000 yards and throwing 40 TDs, but literally improves that much. How is his name not relevant? How is he not in the conversation? How does he not become one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC?
Well, I think you're going to start seeing like a different type of game plan from the Giants. I think the coaching staff was like kind of handcuffed on a lot of plays they could call. I think they're going to start, last year they leaned on the running game a lot. It was obvious from the very beginning of the season until midseason, until Barkley kind of got bagged up. But I think you're going to see like more of a heavy pass team. I think we're going in that direction like Buffalo kind of did. Buffalo's a pass heavy team. I think you're going to see the Giants, and it's going to surprise a lot of people because, listen, we did bring in a lot of new guys, and we're going to rely on some guys in the past. And we're going to talk about 2020, 2022 draft picks that we think are going to make a leap in their second year. So we'll start off with this since we're talking about how the offense is. Let's talk about Evan Neal. I think he's the most important piece on this offensive line. Sure, we upgraded all over the place, but I'm expecting him to make a leap. He's been putting in the work. He switched his stance. I think he makes that leap to be our solid right tackle. I mean, listen, he had rookie mistakes all year like everybody does. I think you're going to see him make a big improvement. And if he makes that big leap, sky's the limit, man, for the Giant offense, I believe.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't expect him to be Andrew Thomas, right? Like I can't do that yet.
Put that to bed. Yeah, no.
Way too much pressure. But if everybody remembers, people were calling Thomas a bust after his rookie year.
Of course, I remember.
They were calling him a fucking bust, and now he's like one of the best, under 25 and unders in the league. Like he finished in the top 10. I get where that PFF ranking came out this year, right?
Yep.
So like he literally made that major step. As a right tackle, we don't need him to do that. But if he just improves upon what he did last year, that's automatically going to make this team better. And then of course you bring in the center that we got out of Minnesota, right? And you have Schmitz in there in the middle. So that those three guys, if they could just play together, and we've got these guys sewed up, bro, that's gonna make the rest of that make the guards whatever they need to be. You know what I mean? And we're gonna start developing that type of an offensive line.
Well, you're gonna see like now speaking of the guards, don't forget Joshua Azudu is coming back from injury, and he played really well, especially in like I think the run game, the run block game at guard, from North Carolina. I think he was playing really well for a rookie. I think he gets his job back, as part of that offensive line.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to bring him up because that was the 3rd-round pick last year. Yep. Right. So, like, coming as a rookie, getting hurt, coming back, he was. I mean, look, you take that kind of guard as being a starting type of guard, like a rotational piece. You're not going to, this is what we were talking about leading into this year's draft, where you don't find, like, yes, the big tackles go early, right? Maybe some, like, slam dunk center or guard, like we've seen in the past that just you can't miss, right? Like, we'll go in the 1st round. But most of these offensive lines are built with guys in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. Basically what we're doing, right? We went and got the center in the 2nd round, which I feel like fell to us, right? He shouldn't have been there when we got him, but he did. And you got to run with that. That's an awesome pick right there. So you got your 2 stud tackles that you spent 2 high picks on. You got a pretty damn good center coming out of college. And you got this guard that, you know what, give him another year. Let's see what's what. Mix it in with what we have currently. We're going to be all right up front. I really do. And I think, like you were kind of mentioning, where, it's going to give us better pass protection. They're going to be able to open it up, right? And, if you look at what the Giants did, they went out and just got speed, right? They went and signed Slayton. They went and fucking got, Paris Campbell, and they drafted and traded up to get Jalen Hyatt, right? And these guys are blazers. They fucking speed. So you know why they're doing that shit? At least what I'm thinking is Philly embarrassed us because what were they doing? They were taking their 2 corners, they were pressing them up, and they were stacking the box, right? And if you could do that, and we don't have a tight end that can get open and cause trouble, you're stacking the box, so Barkley's numbers are going to be less, and you got these corners playing press coverage on your 2 receivers and keeping them in. What do you want Daniels to do?
Right.
But now you got these blazing guys that literally, if you make one mistake, this guy's gone, right? That's going to open things up. They got to back it up a little bit. You got to leave a safety over the top at the very least. Then you got Darren Waller, who's going to be fucking flitting around. And they bring in Jamison Crowder, who still, like I said, may not make the team. But like Shepard and Crowder, and then, of course, since we're talking about, drafts for 2 years ago, with Wendell Robinson, right? Those 3 guys are going to be that slot guy. They're going to develop, right? You're going to have these 2 veterans. That one is definitely injury prone. We don't know how good he's going to be, even though he's looking decent in OTA. We'll see what happens. You bring in Crowder, and then when Wendell's able to get on the field, hopefully by October, November of this season, you got this kid that's learning from these veterans, how to be that real true slot guy. And we saw what he could do. Maybe he's just a gadget guy. I don't know. But who knows? But, like, that's what his intention is to be that true slot guy with Jalen Hyatt being on the one outside. I still think we're missing a 1, but you know what? We got a bunch of 2s, I think, finally. Where I really didn't feel that confident about having all those 2s years ago, right? Like, I really feel we have that. And like you said, Mike, I know your pick is Jalen Hyatt to be the number 1 receiver on this team. He's got all the things. I mean, look, he was, a Biletnikoff winner. And if you go through the list, I had the list out last year, but like some of the names that were on that list, these guys are serious receivers. I mean, there's been some misses over the last 10 years. Don't get me wrong. But one of them was due to like getting in trouble with the law. Another one was due to injury. Like there were some misses there. But, Jordan Addison is one. You have Devonta Smith is another. I'm just pulling a few names out of the hat real quick. But, you have some guys that are serious receivers that win this award. And like I said, the only reason why this kid dropped down was because they said he was a one-trick pony and he can only run a deep route. When that's not even true. You know what I'm saying? And like we discussed it in more detail last year. So I definitely think the Giants are going to throw more this year. There's no question about it. Like if they don't, then I don't understand what this whole offseason was about, right? You know what I mean? Right. And especially if Barkley's fucking playing this game of holding out, what else are we going to do? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I have aspiration for the kid that's going to be coming up. I think he's going to be a good workhorse running back. I think he can develop into it. He's not on Barkley's level, but right. You know what? You mix in with Matt Breida and everything else, we might be able to get a run game going.
Yeah, we'll see what Eric Gray does. But like you pretty much defended my argument about Jones. It's like when you had good defenses that could press coverage on wide receivers because they know they can't go deep. I mean, that's a problem for your offense. Everybody's like down in Jones, like, oh, he never throws deep. I'm like, but who's he going to throw the fucking ball to? Because guys can't get open. But that's another story for another day. We're still talking about you talked about Wandale Robinson. Like I think don't count on him being back by September. Give him more like late October, I think. So we
That's what I'm saying. I
gotta
told
wait for
November.
him because he's injured like everybody else did. We got also as a guard, we got Marcus McKethon who got injured, I think ACL. Also a guard from North Carolina that they were really high on. I just like the depth they're accumulating on offensive line because there's always in years past, you like if one of our starters got hurt, you just like season over because we had like nobody else that would come in. But I like what they're doing there. Um, so the next guy in line would probably, I mean, K Tibbs. We could go on about him, but real short about him. I think he could be dominant. The sky's the limit for this kid, and I really believe that too. I think you're gonna start seeing him get a lot more sacks next year.
Well, real quickly with Dibs, I really think a lot is going to be based on my boy Ojolari. A lot. Because when
I
he
hope
was on the field, last year, he was dominant because they couldn't handle both of them, right?
they
And
can't handle both of them. No, not at all.
it's going to be tough to handle, especially with Leonard Williams and everybody in the middle. You know what I'm saying? That's a fucking scary front, right? But the whole key is Ojolari, right? Because if not, see, this is where I started. I'm already looking at next year's draft, right? Like, do we need that? No, do we go after a number one wide receiver? Do we go after a pass rusher, right? I
I don't
mean,
know.
that's a possibility too, right? Because if Ojolari's not doing it, dude, that's what we're missing now. We need another pass rusher. You know
Jules,
what I mean?
he just gotta be on the field, Ojulari. And when he's on the
That's
field,
it.
it's
That's
nasty.
it.
That's
That's it.
all. That's really all it comes down to with him.
But
But
that's the reason why he fell in the draft like he did, was because there was
right.
always an injury concern surrounding him.
But
And now we're finally
our whole
seeing it.
fucking team is Jules. Like
I know.
every fucking year, like it always happens. God, I hope everybody's fucking healthy with this new field next year. But
Well, it's funny because literally, like how we were talking about how whatchamacallit, how like the field is so terrible and it upgraded. And I go down these YouTube rabbit holes at times. I went down one and it was like the worst fields that you could play on. And of course,
yeah,
basically the whole NFC East, with the exception of Dallas, was in there. All right, because they mentioned Philly, they mentioned the fucking Washington, and of course they mentioned nothing. It was like was it Jason Kelsey? I think his name is, right? Travis's brother that plays for the Eagles.
Eagles Center.
He's
Yeah,
like, I fucking hate playing at MetLife. He's like, MetLife is the worst. And he's coming from fucking Philly where that field got thrown under the bus. You know
so
what I mean?
it must have been really bad. It must have been really fucking
You
bad.
know that shit ain't good if you got dudes calling that shit out like that. And let's not forget a couple of seasons ago when the 49ers were crying because they
Well,
literally had the Jets and then play us and they ended up with like 12 different injuries. So, might be a little something doing it. I don't know.
Hey, listen, we all got the feel we wanted, but it's gonna come back to us because we're gonna be paying like fucking $28 for a beer next year.
Yeah,
All
no
right,
shit, dude.
next guy, I'm actually looking forward to this. Jules is Daniel Bellinger to be
Right.
like a two tight end set with with Darren Waller, and we could like put him like imagine putting both them on the line to actually just go out to pass on like a play action. I'm like, how are you going to cover both those guys too with our wide receivers? I'm telling you, the Giants offense got options, and I'm looking forward to Daniel Bellinger like really making a nice like leap as long as he's like injury free with his eye. He's back to looks like he's back to himself. He got bigger. He's got fucking jacked. It was all over social media. I'm like, you better watch out for that PP test you're gonna have to fucking put through tomorrow after NFL sees that. But hey, listen, those two guys, I mean, and Kittle had high praise for Bellinger too. He's like he could be like one of the great tight ends. So hey, that'd be really nice to see, man. Those two guys go out and catch passes.
Well,
Huh?
I think it's just going to help us on the goal line, especially, right? You know what I mean? Like, because that's where you're going to want to be a little tighter, a little bigger formation.
Inside the 20, yeah.
3 tight, 1 wide type shit. It's going to help Barkley or whoever the running back is, right? Like, it's going to open things up that way because it'll definitely give you some serious threat
Inside the 20, like inside the red zone, right?
That's where I really see that sort of like kind of like being a plus for the Giants, and
Yeah.
then again too, you know what? Look, I love talking about this because it is so true. But you know what? You have Darren Waller, you have a Pro Bowl tight end in this guy, and you know what? You teach the younger guy. You teach him a few things. Teach him how to run around a little better. You get down on the block, sell a fucking block. That turns into a pattern or something. It's the little things, a little technique here and there that all of a sudden gives you that extra edge and makes you that better of a player. You know what I mean? So it's good to have this kind of veteran leadership just around. So even if Darren Waller doesn't get to what he was 2 seasons ago, which I don't think he will, right? But like I think I threw out a number where I said if he was at like 65 for 800 and like 6, dude, that's a slam dunk. You can't fucking knock that, not in his day and age. You know, I'm not expecting Travis Kelce type numbers out of him. I'm just not, right? But he could get there. I get it, but I'm just not expecting it, right? So anything above that is like, wow, okay, cool.
Hey, listen, tight end room is a small room, so fucking teach him something. All right,
for real. You know, because he's only here for 1 year, Ward, right? So like,
could be.
Even if he does have that year, there's no guarantee he resigns with us. He might go somewhere else after that, and then we got to go back to Bellingham, or we got to go into the draft, right? And again, here I am talking about we're talking about next year's draft already. But like, these are the things you have to start focusing on because we want to be dominant for the next 5 to 10 years, not just this year or next year, right? And that's where you start looking at these pieces. Do we need a true wide receiver 1? Do we still need a corner? Do we need another linebacker? Do we need a pass rusher? Do we need this tight end? I don't know, right? We have guys in place, but those are some of the 4 or 5 positions that are going to stand out and have the spotlight on them, unfortunately, this whole season.
No guaranteed money for Waller for the next 2 years. All right, next guy. Speaking of corners, Cordell Flott, quarterback LSU. He had his moments last year. Obviously we signed a stud this year, our first rounder, to be that starter opposite of Jackson Adoree. I don't know. Maybe Cordell Flott fits the slot, slot Flott. Maybe that could be it. Oh, that's the title. Slot Flott. So maybe Slot Flott could be the guy to cover that fucking slot. And maybe he's like that third corner because Darnay Holmes, dude, I was watching some game tape with Darnay last year. Dude, he was getting beat in the slot like you won't believe. We all remember it, but it was pretty awful. So I'm hoping Cordell's the guy that steps up and fills that position, man, because we need it.
And don't forget, I told you, and I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try, but we got the guy from Detroit as well. People just kind of keep overriding this guy. This guy was literally 1 season removed from like a Pro Bowl style corner year. It's such like, I remember him being like one of those guys that Detroit took him, like I think in the 2nd round. Like he was a top corner at one point. And look, he could play the slot maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. But again, I feel like what we did, and I'm pretty sure I'm quoting Dable when I say this, that basically he said you can never have too many corners, right? And that's exactly what they went. They went out and got a ton of DBs. They're going to find people to play in these positions. Like, they're going to be guys that are going to step up, even if it's just sort of like a rotation. You know what I mean? Where it has to be like that, where at least you got fresh legs on the corner or something, or in the slot or something.
Jules, are you talking about Amani Orujowabi?
There you go. That sounds a little better than I.
Okay. I can't pronounce it, but yeah, that's the guy the Giants signed over
and
from.
Look at what was like if you have it up, you have his stats up with it or no?
No, I don't have that.
Because I was gonna say like his 2021 or 2022 stats or 2021 stats rather were not terrible. They were actually pretty fucking impressive. And it's like, so he had an off year in 2022. Okay. Like, people forget that, like, especially when it comes to these athletes, and you see it a lot more in baseball than you do in like football or anything, or basketball or whatever. But guys have down years. They have an off year, and then they bounce back and they get back to where they were if they're that type of an athlete and have that kind of like, drive in them. But like, you see it all the fucking time, man. Like, guys have bad years. And like, it's just like nowadays with all the media and all the shit that we always talk about and all like the, social media outlets and everything that's available to people, they can like harp on a down year. You know what I mean? Like so much more so where it's just sort of like focused in and like guys get like pushed to the back where they just like totally forgotten about because they had this down year, which is ridiculous in my eyes.
Yeah, sometimes that shit happens. You're right. All right. Next guy would be we'll stay in the secondary is our safety, Dane Belton. I think he's slotted in, so to speak, to be our starter. Right.
He's got a shot at being that strong safety, right?
Yeah, next to McKinney. So
yeah,
I mean, we'll see.
Right? And I remember he was another one too that slipped in the draft. I feel like we've gotten over the last couple of seasons a lot of guys, and I'm even going back to before Shane and Dable came in. A lot of guys that we drafted that slipped through the draft, and we got them. And you could see it. And granted, like I said, Ojulari being one of them, McKinney being another one, right? McKinney was supposed to be a first round safety, he slipped in the 2nd round that year. Right, like there's certain guys that Ojulari, like I always been saying, like he slipped into the draft. Like Ojulari was seeing it fine. It's the injuries. McKinney had a fluke injury. If he didn't have that fluke injury, this dude's a top fucking safety. Period. Stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's been playing like that. So you know what? Look, there's only a handful of teams that are loaded in all four fucking positions in that secondary. There's only a handful, right? And honestly, I got people already like they go, the defense is going to be so good. Who's playing corner two and who's playing strong safety? All right, name me the 2 starting corners on the fucking Chiefs. Okay. All right, and then motherfuckers just won Super Bowl. All right, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
not like you can fucking name the 2 corners on that team. I did. You know what I'm trying to say? But like, what the fuck are you moving there? You know? Yo, Eli Apple is a starting corner for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, give me a fucking break. Like, fine. The Eagles had 2 this year. Cool. We know Darius Slay's a beast and fucking Bradbury played better as a cornerback too. Fine. You know what I'm trying to say? But like, can you name the fucking 2 on Dallas besides Diggs? I can't remember the other guy. We know Diggs just because Diggs had all those interceptions last year.
Yeah, and we know his brother.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, dude, people overthink that shit so much. It's more schemes, how you rush the passer, and like what kind of a coordinator you have. We have a coordinator that can make up for shit because we're going to be attacking, 80% of the time in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So
upgrading at fucking linebacker, which we definitely did with fucking, I don't want to butcher his name either. He's gonna be a stud. I'm telling you, Mike, that kid's gonna be good. He's gonna be just right as good as any of the other linebackers that we've won with in the middle there, right? And that's what you end up doing. And in the pass rush, if Ojulari can stay healthy this year, they're able to take that next step. The defensive line is there. You're going to have a presence. You don't need a stud corner on both ends. You know what I'm saying? If you got a good one and you have another one that's decent enough or a rookie who's going to just go through some growing pains, you should be all right in those positions.
All right.
Same goes for development.
All right. Well, we got 3 more guys from the 2022 draft. Real quick, Mika McFadden, linebacker, DJ Davidson, defensive tackle, and my favorite guy, Darian Beavers, linebacker Cincinnati, that got hurt, didn't play. I think he makes that rotation to be one of the linebackers in and out is Darian Beavers. I really like him. Besides Mika McFadden, I'm not really that high on, but I think Darian Beavers could be the guy that steps up and, after that terrible injury last year that kept him off the field, I think he makes an impact next year.
I know. Listen, I was rooting for him coming out of college when he was coming out of college.
For real, man.
Cincinnati team, they made the playoffs. He was part of that defense. It was part of the team. Saban said that team was really loaded. It had Riddler, who's now in Atlanta, at quarterback, and they had some really big pieces on defense, and he was one of them. You know what? Like sometimes just because people got to start to recognize that Cincinnati is a better school than it was, and it's not just a basketball school anymore. It's pretty decent. They got a good coach there, and the guy recruits well. So, it's wide open, and it'd be nice to see these two having a nice little friendly camp battle to see who can win that other spot.
Absolutely right. All right, that's all I got, Jules, on those draft picks. We want to wrap it up, and we'll come back.
Yeah, man. Listen, that's it. Listen, as we get closer, it's one of those things when we start to do the countdown again. We did the countdown to the draft, and before you know, boom, draft was here. And now it's the countdown to camp, and then, of course, to the first exhibition game. And before you know, man, that shit's going to be here, dude. Like, what, camp officially starts in a couple of weeks, right? When it officially starts?
I think so.
Right, a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, that's camp. And then your first preseason game is like, what, 6-7 weeks from now? Right? Dude, that's going to go by like nothing. It's summertime. Kids are out of school, barbecues and fucking camping trips and going away on vacations and shit, the beach and this. Dude, before you know, man, that shit goes by in like 2 seconds. The weekend don't feel long enough. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like, before you know it, the season will be here. We kick it off, and all this shit's going to come to fruition. We're going to see what's going on with what. We need to get your boy Barkley signed, or at least figure out something with him, because I think this team is obviously better with him, especially at this point in the season. I mean, like I said, I think that him and Jacobs are continuously playing off of one another. But, dude, you got a list of running backs currently. As we record today on June 12th, there is a list of running backs available. I mean, it's kind of scary. You have Dalvin Cook, you have fucking Fournette, you have fucking Zeke Elliott, you have fucking technically Barkley and Jacobs because they're not signed currently, right? I mean, dude, there's a lot of huge names of guys that literally were dominant running backs at one point a couple of seasons ago, So, Kareem Hunt's another one I just left off the list, So James Robinson just got cut by New England today.
Really?
Yeah, he just got cut today, a couple hours ago, got cut as we were recording here on the 12th, right? So, you got to keep all that kind of shit in mind, man. Like the market is what it is because it's a little saturated. It just goes back to the old fucking thing, supply and demand. You know what I mean? So when the supply of running backs is high and the demand is low, what do you expect? And you got, unfortunately, you're in a bad market. You know, it was kind of similar to what we were saying about Jones. Let's get Daniel Jones signed because it's going to look like this is a ridiculous contract. And then all of a sudden, it's not. And give it another year, when all these other guys are going to start to sign, it's really not going to look like a ridiculous contract. So, you know, like that's what happens. And unfortunately for Barkley, he's just in a bad market this year, and he's just got to deal with it. Unfortunate. But anyway, hopefully when we come back next week or the week after that, he's signed. We got some good news in that direction, and we're trending fucking towards that. By the way, hit the like button, subscribe, tell your friends. We need it. You know, the support just gets us more out there if you like what you hear, right? But until next time, we'll see you guys. Be safe.
Go Giants.